Welcome, everyone, to the NewVision, OldWays podcast, a greatly ambitious journey of discovery where we can all learn to live better, mentally healthier, and more fulfilling lives. If you're just discovering us, feel free to go back and take the journey from the beginning. And if you're already a NewVision, OldWays fan, welcome back and enjoy Season 4. And now, here is your host, Tony Marinaccio.
You are listening to NewVision, OldWays, the podcast that explores timeless wisdom for the modern mind in a fun, relaxed, and most important, interactive way with you, the listener. I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and let's get the episode started. Welcome, everyone, to the NewVision, OldWays podcast, and I am thrilled to have you join me for another great episode. If you have not, I strongly encourage you to go back to the first two episodes in this series and work your way up to this one. I say that because everything I talked about in those episodes leads us directly to what I will be discussing today, and that's motivation. Our true motivation for having a creative mindset is crucial for how we will approach every aspect of our lives. If we don't understand what our motivation is, our why, we will never have a clear understanding of what we need to do to succeed in anything we try, or even have a real sense of who we really are. In this episode, I want to dig deep into our psyche and bring out what it is that can and will drive us towards our goals and directs our motivation to see it through. It is not quite as simple as you may think. Failure only really occurs when we lose the motivation that fueled us to start in the first place. Or failure occurs because we never really knew what the motivation was to begin with, causing our end goal to get so cloudy that we lost sight of it and failure was all but assured. Failure can and will happen, but with the right motivation, you can forge ahead and make that dream come true. So let's start making those dreams a reality by starting episode 34, Creative Thinking Part 3, The Motivation Factor.
Why does motivation seem so fickle? And what even is it in the first place? Psychologists define motivation as the desire or impetus to initiate and maintain a particular behavior. In other words, it's the energy that drives you to do something. And knowing the source of that drive is particularly important when it comes to understanding how to maintain it.
When it comes to creativity, a lack of clear goals or direction can be one of the most significant factors that derail our motivation. Whether you are an artist, writer, musician, entrepreneur, parent, teacher, or anyone that is just trying to creatively get through the day, direction provides structure and purpose. Without it, it's easy to feel lost, overwhelmed, or disconnected from the process of creation itself. Motivation is closely tied to a sense of purpose. When we set clear goals or understand the purpose of our work, we are more likely to be energized by the prospect of achieving those goals. Goals act as markers, guiding us through the work and providing a sense of accomplishments once we reach them. Without these markers, we may feel ourselves floating aimlessly, unsure of where to go next or even what direction to take. The feeling of uncertainty or not knowing why you are doing something could be paralyzing. Motivation thrives when there is a deep personal connection to the outcome of the work. If that connection is unclear, it can be difficult to drum up enthusiasm or even begin. For example, if an artist doesn't know why they are creating a particular piece, it's easy for the passion to dissipate. Without clear goals, it's likely you will get overwhelmed by endless possibilities. There is no focus and therefore no clear path forward. A lack of structure can make the creative process feel chaotic, leading to feelings of frustration and inadequacy. When the destination isn't clear, it's easy to put off starting because you don't know what the next steps should be. Procrastination. This is a biggie. It is a natural response to feeling overwhelmed or unsure. Without a roadmap, you can get stuck in the planning stage, endlessly brainstorming ideas, but never committing to one path, never starting at all. The good news is that creative blockages related to a lack of direction can be overcome. A key here is to once again get in touch with your inner self using the techniques I have discussed in many episodes. It is crucial and also sometimes scary to find out the truth about ourselves. Why do we want to do the things that seem so important to us? The real answer may surprise you. Are you motivated by money, fame, improving yourself so that you could deal with everyday life better? Or are you just trying to fit in and merely feel like you are a part of something? Finding out what your core values are, what means the most to us, and what our end goals are is vital to our success. Before we could talk about how to find or reignite our motivation, let's first understand what motivation really is. Motivation is the internal drive that pushes us to act. It's what moves us from intention to action. Now, that's simple, but extremely important. So I'm going to repeat that. Motivation is what moves us from intention to action. In the world of creativity, it's what helps you push through the blank canvas, the empty page, or unstructured ideas. There are two main types of motivation: intrinsic and extrinsic. Intrinsic motivation comes from within. It's the deep, fulfilling desire to create for the sake of the process itself. It's when you do something because you love it, and the joy comes from the act of creation itself. Extrinsic motivation, on the other hand, is driven by external rewards like recognition, financial gain, or approval from others. Now, both types of motivation can be important, but intrinsic motivation is often key to sustained, long-term creativity. It's about connecting with the internal why that we always talk about, the deeper sense of purpose that drives you to create even when there is no immediate payoff. And when that intrinsic motivation starts to fade, we can struggle with staying productive or engaged. In the last episode, I spoke about the idea of flow, and having intrinsic motivation is vital to the flow process. When our motivation is coming from within, knowing we have a real purpose for what we are doing, it's so much easier for us to get completely immersed in a project and stay in that state. The point here is, when you are doing what you love, the process becomes exciting even in the face of failure. Failure becomes a speed bump, not a hard stop. I'll use myself as an example. Without getting into too deep of details, my life was filled with the usual stuff: too much working, trying to support a family, yard work, family commitments, side jobs, trying to slip in fun with friends where possible, leaving no time for my passions in life. And creativity was at best a rare flickering moment. Deep down, I wanted to be creative, have a voice, but I pushed it aside to attend to my responsibilities, like many of us. While that is a noble thing to do, we are at risk of losing ourselves in the process. It's a struggle for balance in life that I am, quite frankly, still wrestling with, but you are listening to a podcast that is truly a labor of love for me. It allows me to unleash my creative side, and my future plans for this podcast and others will allow me to do the things I love and give me that sense of fulfillment that I needed. That's not demeaning all the other things I did in life. I believe we are put in places for a reason. But if I could go back and follow my own advice that I could give myself now, I would have found those moments to be creative. And instead of watching TV, scrolling on my phone, or whatever other senseless things I was doing, I can't go back in time, of course, but I could change my present. And that's exactly how I ended up with this podcast. Going strong with a 1-year anniversary coming up soon. So the point here is, nothing will ever happen until you start. And finding your why, realizing what is motivating you, can push you over that start line and into a world that can make you feel that fulfillment that I am feeling myself.
I'll never forget it. I was 9 days into a silent Zen meditation retreat. 16 hours of meditation a day, no talking, reading, or writing, eating only bland, boring, tasteless food. After the retreat, I caught a cab home and I was sitting in the back seat. My fingers were hovering over the screen of my phone. My anticipation was part excitement, part anxiety. Messages flooded in, and the dopamine reward that I got was intoxicating. The next day, though, I was still in this heavily meditated, Zen-like state, and I rediscovered the mundane aspects of life. I started working on a big, laborious, boring task that I'd been delaying for months. To my surprise, my attention was sucked. into the present moment, and I got into a flow state almost immediately. That optimal state of effortless absorption and heightened productivity. The once dreaded task hooked me, and hours melted away. Any impulse I had to do anything else was overruled by the thrill of discovery and problem solving that had once seemed dull. My brain had been resensitized to find the work rewarding. How did this happen? How had what was once so boring become so rewarding? Well, it boils down to dopamine. Dopamine has been called the molecule of more. It's the reason that cocaine is so addictive and that scrolling social media is so compelling. It's also responsible for the high that we get from accomplishment. It makes us want more of whatever we've done to produce dopamine in the first place.
That was Rian Doris. And what he touches on there is what can be described as the straw that stirs the drink, and that's dopamine. Before I get into the dopamine factor here, let's back up a bit. If you have listened to the previous 2 episodes in this series, you will know that cognitive reappraisal is a big part of the creative process. It's the idea that our perception shapes our response. If you can reframe your thoughts, you can shift your emotional state. The positive part of cognitive reappraisal is that it helps you detach emotionally and approach the situation with a clearer mind, ready to engage your creativity in a new direction. Reframing challenges as opportunities isn't just a mindset. It's a proven strategy that successful creators and thinkers use daily. I bring all of this back up for this reason. Dopamine can be the reason why people use drugs, or it can be the reason people follow their dreams and see failure as only a speed bump, not an end. Having a healthy mind, and that's key, a healthy mind, and being able to focus on your inner self, your values, and your true desires is key to everything we do. We need that base to make everything possible, including finding and cultivating our motivation. That is why I refer to getting in touch with your inner self as much as I do. It's the baseline that can control everything that we do. So let's take a deeper dive into one of the most fascinating and powerful players in the game of motivation, dopamine. You've probably heard of dopamine before. It's often called the feel-good neurotransmitter. But how exactly does it relate to motivation, and why does it seem like it's either pushing us forward or holding us back when it comes to creative work? As I mentioned, dopamine is a neurotransmitter, which means it's a chemical messenger that carries signals in the brain. It plays a key role in our reward and pleasure centers, but more importantly, it regulates our motivation to take action and seek rewards. When we do something that feels good or accomplish something that we have been working towards, like finishing a project, getting praise, or achieving a goal, dopamine is released, making us feel a sense of satisfaction. This reward response encourages us to repeat the behavior in order to experience that same pleasure again. Think of it like a system of positive reinforcement in your brain. Every time you get a dopamine boost, your brain remembers, hey, that felt good. I want to do that again. So as you can see, it can lead you down a dark path if you have a troubled or a weak or anxiety-riddled mind. But if we can use the techniques described in these last 2 episodes, we can instead have a clear and focused mind that is ready to take on anything. But here is where it gets interesting when it comes to creativity and motivation. Dopamine isn't just about experiencing rewards. It's also about anticipation. That means dopamine gets activated before you even reach the goal just by thinking about it or planning to do something that you believe will lead to a reward. I and many others have mentioned the technique of imagining yourself accomplishing your dreams even before you start. It's the release of dopamine from that makes this technique so powerful and useful in the process. This is also why the anticipation of finishing a creative project can often feel just as exciting as the actual completion itself. In a nutshell, dopamine is crucial for motivation because it makes us want to pursue the things that bring us pleasure, but it also keeps us engaged and focused on the tasks that lead to our end reward. Motivation is the drive or desire to do something, and dopamine is at the heart of it. It pushes us to take the first step and continue moving forward, especially when the goal seems far off. For example, let's say you are working on a creative project like writing a song, painting, or even putting together an episode of this podcast. Dopamine is at play from the moment you begin brainstorming. The idea of completing the project, the thrill of thinking about how good it will feel once it's done, gets your brain excited and gives you the energy to start. Now, what happens as you get deeper in the project, as the process becomes more difficult or the reward, like finishing, feels so far off, dopamine levels can dip. This is where motivation can start to fade and you begin to sound like an Eeyore. Okay, maybe not that bad, but this is why we can sometimes feel stuck or burnt out halfway through the project. And dopamine, that boost that helped us start the task, isn't always enough to sustain us through the entire journey. Interestingly, people who are more dopamine sensitive might feel this dip more intensely. They are highly responsive to the initial surge of excitement from the new project or idea, but they may struggle to maintain that motivation when things get difficult. This can lead to what could be called the shiny object syndrome, where we start a bunch of projects because they seem like an exciting thing to do, but when there is a difficult moment, we may never finish them because the dopamine rush fades too quickly. When you are feeling stuck or uninspired, it's often because your brain isn't getting the dopamine boost it's craving. This can happen for a variety of reasons. Maybe you are too tired, or you are overthinking your creative process. Your brain feels like there is no immediate reward in sight. And when that happens, your motivation and creativity can plummet. Without that dopamine, drive, reward, anticipation, your brain has no reason to push forward into action. And here is another interesting factor. Many times, the more you force creativity or stress over the lack of ideas, the more dopamine levels decrease. When you put too much pressure on yourself, you actually create a feedback loop where your brain becomes even less motivated to find creative solutions. But don't fear, there are ways to break and correct this cycle. We can do this by introducing small and manageable goals and rewards. This can reignite that dopamine response and help you push through the mental block. Here are a few strategies that can help you get the most out of dopamine for sustained motivation. First, and always foremost, we can start by clearing our mind, a reset, if you will. Get alone and meditate. Do it for as long as you can, when you can. 5 minutes, a half hour, an hour, whatever time is available. Clear your thoughts and connect again to your inner self and focus on what was motivating you to begin with. Find that why again and clear out all the negative thoughts and reset your brain to get excited about the pursuit of the dream. Then you can set small, manageable, and achievable goals. This gives you quick wins, little victories. This releases little bursts of, you guessed it, dopamine, getting you back on track and feeling that mojo once again. Then celebrate progress, not perfection. If you wait until your project is perfect, or even bigger, if your life is perfect, your brain might become frustrated and demotivated when things are not perfect as you wish they were. Acknowledge each bit of progress, whether it's a creative breakthrough, hitting a small milestone, or simply showing up to work on your project. If you are still struggling to get going again, you could try something new. Our brains get a nice dopamine boost when we encounter something new or unexpected. This is why newness and novelty often spark creative ideas. To stimulate dopamine and kickstart your creativity, try changing your environment, using new tools, or experimenting with something completely outside your usual routine. The change of scenery can shake things up and trigger fresh ideas. Once again, I can use my own example here. My mother passed away when I was 19 and I was in college. And needless to say, my grades slipped down terribly. Essentially, I was failing out of school. I distinctly remember asking myself why I was failing. Obviously, losing my mother at 19 was extremely difficult, but I felt like I didn't know how to study anymore or retain the information because I was so unfocused. So I broke it down into manageable steps, things I could change as I went along, and one being I had to figure out how to study so I could focus properly and retain the information to just even pass a test. I tried everything from reading quietly to reading with music on to studying in the morning, studying at night, etc., etc. Not much was working because all of those experiments were at home. Then, in what seems logical now, but was a eureka moment then, how about stay at school and study in the library? So I started to find fairly secluded areas that had no distraction, and I went to work. And it made all the difference in the world. My grades improved, and I made it into a four-year college that I was hoping to get into. It was a lot of work, but it happened simply because I changed my environment, and it forced me to stay focused and do the work I needed to do to get where I wanted to go. Being creative can and will benefit every aspect of your life. When you think creatively, problems become opportunities for growth, and the world opens up for you. The possibilities will seem endless, and the journey will become your passion. My hope with these 3 episodes is that you find that creative you that you are looking for. My hope is that in finding that, your life becomes full of adventure-like projects that fulfill you and drive you to face the world with confidence and strength. Forget the anxiety, forget the depression, forget the failed projects. It's a new you. One that is motivated, focused, and ready to take on anything. And folks, we are not done with all of this yet. In fact, in the next episode, a special episode, I want to look at what can be called a creative cautionary tale that, as much as it is tragic, can be filled with life lessons that we all can use. And then, after that, one last episode in this series that I will use to look at success stories that are full of inspiration for all of us to move forward in our lives, not just creatively, but in every aspect. So, what did you think of this episode or any of the episodes? I would love to find out. And here is where to get a hold of the show and let us know. These are in the show notes, but as always, here they are. There is a link in the show notes that you can click on that will allow you to donate to the show and show your support. By donating what you can, it will allow me to book guests and cover costs. Anything will help. Cancel anytime, of course. You can also message the show from each episode on your various platforms. Just look for the send us a text message link, and you can shoot us a message that way. If that doesn't work for you, you can email us at NewVisionOldWays@gmail.com. Once again, that's NewVisionOldWays@gmail.com. You can find us on what was Twitter, now X, at NewVisionOldWay. No S at the end of that one, at NewVisionOldWay. Check out the NewVision OldWays YouTube channel. Just type in NewVision, one word, OldWays, one word, and please subscribe. It is free and will show support for the show. It really means a lot and will help grow the show on YouTube. And same thing with Facebook. NewVision, one word, OldWays, one word podcast, and you should easily find us. And as a reminder, these are growing platforms for us and expanding all the time. So we need your help to get the flow going with the community. And last but not least, if you could do me a huge favor and subscribe to us. Like us, follow us, leave a review on whatever platform you found us on. That would be so appreciated. That will also help secure guests that we will be booking in the future. So, welcome to season 4, and I have a lot to cover still in this season, so thank you for listening. I cannot wait to get your input, and I also cannot wait until we get together for the next episode of New Vision, Old Ways. Until then, stay true to yourself, stay informed, and stay empowered.
But the most important thing is...
This episode and all the episodes of New Vision Old Ways podcast have been written, engineered, and produced by Tony Marinaccio and TKM Productions.